Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So today we are here to discuss the brand new palette by Bad Habit. It is the second in the Bad Habit Luxe series. This is the Mythos palette. So if that's something you guys are interested in watching, then you are in the right place. We are about to get into it.
I'm a lone wolf. I'm a lone wolf. I'm a lone wolf. I'm a lone wolf. I'm a lone wolf.
Alright guys, so I'm not going to go through the whole rundown of the Luxe series by Bad Habit Beauty. If you guys want to know what the Luxe series is and why it's different than any other series that Bad Habit is currently launching, then go back and watch the first palette review that we did from the Luxe series, the one that we did on the Mystics palette, and watch that one because I go into the background, why the formula is different, why the price increase, etc., and just kind of freshen up on that. Or if you're new here, definitely go back and check it out just so that you kind of know the backstories behind the Bad Habit Luxe series. So this is the second one in the Bad Habit Luxe series, and this is called Mythos. Now, when we first did the Mystics palette, unfortunately, I didn't have that Pat McGrath palette because, as you guys know, I only have access to one Pat McGrath palette, and that is the second one in the series, and it is called the Sublime palette, and that's the one that the Mythics palette is actually supposed to be duping. So we'll finally get a chance to look at these formulas side by side and see how they stack up from a dupe perspective. So we're going to check that out. Absolutely. I'm really excited. But first, let's go ahead and take a look at this particular palette. This again is called the Mythics palette, and I'll give you guys a close-up of it here. Now, of course, again, this is a 10-color eyeshadow collection from Bad Habit Beauty. This is part of their Luxe series. This formula was specially formulated for the Luxe series and the Luxe series only. I will say that with this particular palette, they did every single color that is in the Sublime palette by the Pat McGrath Labs. Now, excuse the palette itself. When it showed up, the color Odysseus was beaten up a little bit in transit, so it did take a little bit of a beating. So the palette is not in the most beautiful of shapes, but at least you guys will get the idea. So yeah, it is duped shade for shade, and of course you have all of the shades on the back, but they did take the time to put the shades on the actual palette itself. It is a heavier palette. It has that same kind of matte feeling to it. It is just a more luxe palette. When you look at the rest of the Bad Habit palettes, I feel like they put more time into these, and the formula is definitely a little bit different as well. From an ingredients perspective and from a performance perspective, it's just a little bit better. Not that the regular Bad Habit formula is bad, because it's not. You guys know that I actually like the original Bad Habit formula. But these are just, I want to say they're just a little bit smoother, a little bit creamier. You can tell that the ingredients list has got a little more high-end stuff in it. Alright, so let's take a look at these two palettes side by side just so that you guys can actually see what they look like right next to each other. Now, the first thing that you're going to notice is that they're not in the same exact order. So it's not the same exact order. They are shuffled up a little bit because Bad Habit never makes my job easy when it comes to comparing swatches. But for the most part, they are kind of at least on the same side of things, and you can just take a look right up front and tell that this is a palette that was inspired by the Pat McGrath palette right off the bat. So that is pretty obvious, just like it was, I think, with the first palette itself. Now, let's get into these swatches so that you guys can see how these suckers perform right next to their friends from the Pat McGrath palettes. Alright guys, so I am actually going to go ahead and lay down all of the Pat McGrath colors from the top row. of the Pat McGrath palette. So these are all the colors in the top row of the Pat McGrath palette, and we're going to line up the corresponding colors from the Bad Habit palette. And first we have Atlas, then we have Apollo, next we have Rhea, then we have Demeter, and last we have Iris. And that is the top row duped out, with this one being the Bad Habit. So the Pat McGrath is on the left, Bad Habit is on the right. And overall, this is quite impressive, you guys. I really am shocked looking at these colors side by side. There are slight variances, but not by much. And this is kind of an up-close shot, which I think just really gives you an appreciation for how well Bad Habit did with these particular formulas. I think they did an amazing job. I think the brown is the only one that I think is just a little bit off, but truthfully, I think I like the way the brown performs better in the Bad Habit. All right, on to the bottom row of the Pat McGrath palette. So I always had a problem with the black and the brown out of the Pat McGrath palette. I just didn't like them very much, but I am curious about this green and how Bad Habit is going to do with it. So we're going to start with the Bad Habit swatches right next to these Pat McGrath swatches. And the first color is the black, and it's called Helena. And we're going to put that down here, and I think it's better. Next is Dionysus, then next is Hermes, and then we have Dion, which is pretty impressive, and then Odysseus is next. But look at that, you guys. Again, don't forget we have Pat McGrath on the left, and the Bad Habit is on the right. And I like the black out of the Bad Habit. I like the brown out of the Bad Habit. And that green, you guys, I cannot, granted it's not an exact dupe. I do see differences in the green. Even that melon color there, that pinky peach color, they did a good job at. But Dion, you guys, that green shift with the black base, that is pretty stunning for Bad Habit to even get close to the original Pat McGrath shade. And not only did they get close, but I think they did better in the case of the black and the brown. But yeah, quite shocking. All right, so let's play Can You Guess the Dupe? Let's start with my favorite color, Dion. Can you guess which color is Dion from the Bad Habit palette? One of these is Dion and one is the Pat McGrath color. And, oh, they're beautiful. The one that is Dion is the one on the top. Next, we're going to look at Ray, which is that brown, beautiful shade. Which one is Ray from the Bad Habit palette? Can you guess which one is Ray? It is the one on the top. I think it's a beautiful color. All right, next we are going to look at Demeter. One of these is Demeter from the Bad Habit palette. Which one is Demeter? And in my opinion, it looks a little better, especially on the eye. The one that is Demeter is the one on the bottom. All right, next we're going to look at Hermes. And this is one that I think Pat McGrath, actually, I think I like the Pat McGrath formula better. But which one is Hermes from Bad Habit? Hermes is, can you guys guess it? It's the one on the bottom. And that one is Hermes. All right, the black here. Obviously, you guys know I think the Pat McGrath black is lacking. And I think the Bad Habit black on the bottom is better. I just do. And with the browns, I think I find that the brown in the Bad Habit palette blends much better. It's called Dionysus. And Dionysus is the one on the top. Overall, pretty crazy, huh, guys? So overall, you guys, I was stunned at the performance of these shadows, especially compared to the Pat McGrath shadows. Now, I did have a couple of complaints about the Pat McGrath palette going into it. I did a separate review on the Pat McGrath palette. You guys can go back and look at that in my reviews. You'll see where I just reviewed this particular palette all on its own. And the issues that I had were with the two mattes that were in this particular palette. The black, I didn't like it because I didn't feel like the intensity was there, and the brown I didn't like very much because from a blendability perspective I struggled with it and I didn't like that brown very much. The other shades in there, the greens, the toppers that are in there, the peach ones, that bronzy kind of shade that's in there that looks beautiful on the lid, they're all stunning. They're all amazing, and I love those shadows. And I love those shadows in the Mythos palette. However, I really like the matte formula in the Mythos palette. The brown one is actually one that I can work with. I feel like the black was much more intense. I do feel like the Pat McGrath does have the upper hand when it, especially when it came to that green. I just don't think, I mean, Bad Habit did a really good job, and considering the price tag on this palette, if you want anything that's close to the Pat McGrath and you can't afford the Pat McGrath, definitely get this one. They came about as close as a $20 palette can come to duping these duochromes and these really interesting toppers and that green. I just think Bad Habit has nailed it with this particular palette. It's absolutely Erika approved. I do have one kind of caveat to this, and one thing that I have noticed, and that is with the Mystics and with the Mythos palette, is that each one of these has one shadow that is like in each Pat McGrath palette. She has one shadow that is like an iridescent type of topper. That particular shadow, when Bad Habit dupes it, it is very crumbly and is usually the shadow that shows up damaged or broken in my palette. And once I repress it back into the pan, then I can work with it as long as I work with it very gently. I think those formulas need work. And this particular one, it's the formula that is Odysseus. It's this one right here. And in the Mystics palette, the first one that came out, it's Illuminate, which is this one right here. And it's just these iridescent, really soft toppers that they have. It's a blue iridescent one in the Mystics, and the one in the Mythos palette is the one that has more of that peachy pink kind of topper. So I think that particular pan, that particular formula, I think that needs to be worked on just a little bit, and I hope that they improve that particular one before the next one comes out, but we'll see. But so far, so good, Bad Habit. So far, you guys are 2 for 2 on the Pat McGrath collection. I was really shocked at how well these colors match the original Pat McGrath formula. I really was wondering how they actually looked swatched side by side, and it's actually quite stunning. So kudos to Bad Habit. You guys got about as close as you possibly could and stayed within that affordable budget, so it makes that $100 and however much it is to buy a Pat McGrath palette, I think it's like $130, it makes it attainable so everybody can enjoy it. So if you guys have never tried a Pat McGrath palette, definitely invest in the Bad Habit ones. They're great dupes. You get the same concept. You get the same, and in some instances, better, in my opinion. The mattes in this one, in my opinion, are a little bit better. But you get the same duochromes, the same effect, and you don't have to pay so much money for it. So this one is Erika approved as well. So far, the Luxe series has not disappointed. And yeah, I really like it, guys. Alright guys, so that is it for this video. Keep in mind we still have the giveaway going on for the Vault collection. That is going to be given away at the end of this month via live stream. Make sure that you are subscribed to my Instagram at ErikaApproved, and that way you will get all the updates as far as when the live stream and the announcement is going to take place. In order to enter, you have to go back to the Vault collection video and make sure that you like it. Put down in the comments a way for me to get in touch with you, and don't forget to be a subscriber, and that is all you have to do. So yeah, that's the giveaway we have going on right now, and good luck to everybody. Make sure you guys get all 3 of those things done, and we'll be doing that announcement at the end of August. Alright guys, as always, I hope all of you are very happy and very healthy, and I will see you guys in the next video.